Hey everyone, James here. Today going to be reviewing another film, another Italian genre film, The Church, 1989. This film is actually neither a polizioteschi or gialli, so it fits a little bit outside of that. But you know, a lot of the most famous Italian films do kind of sit outside of that mode too. Stuff like Suspiria, City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, those sorts of things. And I think this film kind of firmly sits in the lineage of those films as well as something like Demons. So quickly, the synopsis for this film, which is really not that important for it, but we're going to do it anyways. An old Gothic cathedral built over a mass grave develops strange powers and traps a number of people inside with ghosts from a 12th century massacre who are seeking to resurrect an ancient demon from the bowels of earth. Pretty good description, honestly. A very, very good one. And I think this film is interesting. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with Italian horror sometimes, mainly because plot is not necessarily what it's focused on, especially on kind of those films that I was talking about earlier. Suspiria does not have a great plot. You like it for its visuals, its image, its atmosphere. And the same goes for a lot of those big Fulci works around that time. Of course, that's not necessarily true for all of Italian genre film. Gialli, they often have they're driven by narratives and plots and stuff like that. They might be a mess, but they're absolutely important components to the film itself and how it ends up playing out too. And sort of in the same vein of those things like Suspiria, Infernal, and The Beyond, we also have films like Demons and Demons 2 done by Lamberto Bava. I'm a little lukewarm on the Demons films. I do enjoy them. They're not my personal favorites of the films, but I do get sort of that appeal there, which are kind of like these concept films that are set in a certain place and we follow a bunch of characters throughout that. And this film has interesting production history because it was originally supposed to be Demons 3. It was originally supposed to be directed by Lamberto Bava. I think the general concept, if I understood it correctly, was that they were going to do for Demons in a movie theater and Demons 2 in kind of this modern apartment complex into basically a church instead. Lamberto Bava did not want to do the film apparently, and so it landed in Soavi's lap, and he was kind of given free rein by Argento and the other creators of it to sort of mess with the script and change a bunch. So he supposedly did change quite a bit. And I think once you sort of see that Demons similarity, it's pretty obvious. I think the film plays a little bit differently from those films in a way that sort of places it squarely sort of in between those Demons films and sort of like those more abstract, surreal, very image-based films of Argento and Fulci that are kind of like that straight Italian horror, the things that Italian horror really has sort of that reputation for, where the plot is very much secondary or tertiary to it. So in that sense, I think this film is challenging because the plot is both simple and complicated. I think it's simple in the sense that do you really need much of the plot? Basically, that synopsis says everything you need to know about this film, and you can kind of just watch stuff happen throughout the film. And personally, I think that's the way I like watching this film the most, is just kind of like a series of like cool effects, sets, lots of atmosphere and stuff going on. And I like those things. I like all those things, and so having that just sort of wash over me, sort of like a fever dream, I think is my preferred way of seeing something like this film. But it's also complicated because there are a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of different characters and stuff kind of being cross-cut between and sort of interweaving, and they all kind of go into these different directions. So basically, similar to the Demons films, at a certain point when stuff starts to go to shit, we have basically a bunch of different characters that we start to follow throughout the church. Like we have some of the head priests and different like people that just basically get stuck in the church. There's like a wedding party. We get to follow all of them as stuff just starts to go wild. And it's kind of just a good excuse to let the effects team and stuff like that really, really go. And that is probably why most people would see this film. Yeah, it makes sense, but kind of depends how you are thinking about the plot and stuff like that, and how much you care to follow, or if you just want to kind of let it wash over you and stuff like that. So personally, I really like this film. This might be my absolute favorite Soavi film. A lot of the appeal for me is kind of what I was just talking about, the creativity with the effects and stuff like that. We have some very creative animal costumes, the atmosphere, the sort of elemental nature of that. For me, I find that to be very, very gripping. But I can definitely understand people that kind of want to latch onto a plot and stuff like that. It's interesting to think that this is his sophomore effort after doing Stage Fright in '87, because Stage Fright is very, very simple, and it's pretty obvious the way to watch and approach the film. It's just a very, very concise kind of slasher jolly. There's not even much of a mystery to it, so it's very simple, even as far as kind of giallos go. And so, in that sense, Stage Fright is very, very simple. I would personally make the case that the plot of this is also very simple, at least what you need to know about it, for sure. Getting a little bit into more of this too, it opens up in a really interesting way. We start with kind of this medieval opening, where we basically have these crusaders committing a bunch of murders of people and basically creating this giant pit that they're bearing. I think the reason is supposedly witchcraft, quote unquote, and on top of the people, they build the church. And the Crusaders are known for being just very, very violent. This is a particular sect of them, supposedly. And one interesting interpretation I did encounter, and I do like this interpretation a lot, is that basically the idea is that they are covering up these crimes literally by building a church on top of it. So they're building kind of this holy thing on top of kind of these unholy deeds that they are doing, and how it kind of shows kind of just the root of the corruption of kind of the church, how that is sort of at just literally the foundation of this building that is supposedly standing for good and is holy. I think that's a really cool interpretation. After watching an interview with Soavi, I'm not sure if I personally believe it that much, because the way Soavi talks about it and how they talked and tried to get approval from different religious organizations, and how it was important to Argento, who is a producer during this film, that it not be too harsh on the Catholic Church and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I like that as an interpretation. I like how it's not necessarily clear-cut. You don't need that interpretation to see the film that way, but I think it does add kind of like this separate layer of richness to the film, too. I recently watched an Italian genre film, Spider Labyrinth, and compared to that film, which is very kind of backloaded, that film has just an absolutely amazing sequence in the last 15 minutes. The rest of it is pretty good, but I don't know if most of it lives up to that last 15 minutes, which is just wow. I feel like this film is more well-rounded. It has more of a steady drum of stuff. This film is still kind of split into like kind of before stuff, the church closes and people get trapped in the church, and after, when just more stuff just starts to go wild and the effects team goes. This film, I think Soavi does a bunch of smart stuff. I think one of which is he kind of interspices this. So we know there's kind of like this sense of danger and sense of like supernatural things happening. People are dreaming and stuff like that. And I think it's just enough to kind of keep you interested until we hit that sort of moment towards the end. Compared to something like Spider Labyrinth, which I think does try to do kind of the same thing. I don't think it just succeeds in the same way as that film does. Another interesting thing to this film too is sort of looking at it just under the guise of both Argento and Soavi's careers here. This is Argento producing. Soavi served as an assistant director on I think most of Argento's 80s output, starting with Tenebrae. And so they worked very closely together. And so Argento, of course, was the producer of Bava's Demons and this film as well. And he sort of has an interesting legacy of the producer, and it's too bad he stopped at a certain point, because he also produced Dawn of the Dead too. You can tell that Soavi kind of takes a lot of his cues from Dario, and I don't say that in a bad way or something like, or anything like that. Just the way the camera moves and stuff like, and it kind of just shows you this very dynamic setting. The camera is always kind of in movement during Argento films. And I like how Soavi focused on that, and there's a lot of effort put into kind of the stylistic, technical aspects to this film, and I think it works really, really well. I think it establishes kind of this great Gothic setting and stuff like that. I think Soavi too kind of has a little bit more self-awareness than Argento at this point, so you get less of the head-scratching, what the fuck moments that you would get from kind of like the unevenness of an Argento film here. For me, this film feels a little bit more kind of level-headed and steady. So yeah, I like just a lot of what's in there. Some of the alchemy scenes kind of remind me of Inferno too. And it just has a lot of just great effects as stuff really just breaks down. Animals, there's some headbanging. There's a lot of just fun stuff towards the latter half of the film. Makes me wonder if this film would be more seen if it had indeed be Demons 3. Personally, I think this is a much stronger film than both of the Demons 1 and Demons 2. I think it's too bad it didn't. The lead here is also an interesting guy, Tomas Arana, who has a really strong presence, but he's kind of like one of those guys that seems like 85% like handsome leading man, but 15% just kind of weird and slightly off. So he appeared in a number of Hollywood films during this time too. I recently saw him in, I think, The Bodyguard, playing like an evil bodyguard, and he's just got one of those faces in Italian genre film just in this period, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Just lots of great faces and people like that that they put in these films, partially because I think these were dubbed, and so they're looking at other ways to kind of have this very expressive characteristic beyond kind of like an American film where it might lean on more just like the actor and the dialogue and stuff like that in the screenplay. In terms of Soavi, I really think his career had very, very unfortunate timing. He stopped directing after Cemetery Man for some time, I think due to an illness in the family, which is very unfortunate. I think certainly another contributing factor could be just the overall decline of the Italian film industry during this time. He really got a start at the very tail end of when the Italian film industry basically collapsing, like starting in 1987 with Stage Fright when he first directed. The Italian genre film since 75 till there is basically a nosedive at that point. And so he was really directing when a lot of the infrastructure and stuff like that had already broken down as far as these films are concerned. So it's too bad, but I would have loved to see what his career would have looked like if he was just maybe 10 years older and had his start in 1975 rather than 87. Because it's very clear that he's a very, very talented filmmaker. And I like all four of those horror films that came out: The Church, The Sect, Stage Fright, Cemetery Man. Personally, for me, I think this one stands atop the list. I'm not quite as high on Cemetery Man as other people are. I know that it's a lot of people's favorite Soavi film. Definitely kind of one of the... a lot of people see it as sort of that last hurrah of the Italian film industry in the 90s. So, probably one I should revisit at some point, but I didn't like it quite as much as other people do. But it's still really quite good. So yeah, I guess if I were to sum up the appeal of this film, it's just a lot of the atmospheric creativity. It's basically, for me, it's just like the best Demons film. It just has all those things going for it. And I really like the film. So who won? Got to give it to Soavi. I think he's kind of the creating force here. I don't even know if I mentioned the people that did score, but kind of your Argento greatest hits and Keith Emerson and Goblin. I think there's some Philip Glass in here. So that's just a murderer's row of just great musicians there. Fantastic score, which contributes to that sort of like that very, very atmospheric Gothic quality to it. Rating, 9 out of 10. Yeah, just really, really great film. For some reason, I put off recording this, so the film is not quite as fresh in my memory. Saw it maybe 2 weeks ago, but it's a really good film. And if you have not seen it, I do recommend that you check it out and let me know how you like it. Let me know what your Soavi rankings are, and I will see you all next time.